Oh, hey there. My name's Russ Matthews. I'm with Real Dialogue. It's an activity of Third Space, and I'm here with my co-host, Hope 103.2's Laura Bennett.
Hi.
We're here to kind of start a new podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be something a little bit different.
It is going to be something a little bit different. It's the Watchlist. So the Watchlist is different because it's kind of a movie podcast with a bit of a twist, if you'd like. Think of it as kind of putting your M&Ms in with your popcorn. You get a bit of savory, a bit of sweet in this whole thing. Which one we are, I'm not sure.
I'm definitely the M&Ms.
You
can be the popcorn.
I'll be the popcorn.
Yeah.
So I'm the savory. I get it. Totally get it. So really what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at some of the latest offerings from cinemas and streaming, but also we're going to be looking at the bigger questions that movies really have to offer for us. We'll look at the themes, we'll look at the stories and the discussions. It's more than reviews, it's more than opinions. It's really more of an offer of some fun, engaging points that kind of are more of a focus on a theme than it is necessarily just one film.
Yeah, and there's so many different movies that come out. There is so much to watch. So we want to really talk about what is coming out for sure, but also, like you say, some of the big ideas that are really brought up by those movies, by these kind of pop culture entertainment moments.
Exactly. We can have a lot of fun with it. Not that we won't be talking about some of the newer films, but we definitely will kind of even look back at some great films that many people may not even remember.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of get into it, and we're going to look first at looking forward.
Yes, we're talking about the 95th Academy Awards, also known as the Oscars. You know, we don't all call them the fancy full-on name.
That's right. And why not go big? I mean, we're going to start this is our first episode, and what are we going to do? We're going to let's go with the biggest and grandest moment pretty much in Hollywood at this time.
First question though, do you actually watch the Oscars? Because it's like this is the thing, right? It's like a 5-hour ceremony process. They get the free food and enjoy, rubbing shoulders with each other while they're there. For us, the poor people watching at home, we don't want to sit through that. I just want the highlights. I want to know who won. I want to know what the biggest moment was.
Right. Or like my wife and my daughter, who had the prettiest dress, or who looked the best, or who looked the worst.
There's so many conversations to be had.
Yeah, I think in this modern era, it used to be. I mean, if you really want to know, it used to be my wife and I would religiously watch it. It was one of the things that came up, and every year we would sit down and go, we didn't watch the Super Bowl, we watched the Academy Awards. It was one of the things we really enjoyed. But now it's kind of the point where it's gotten so long.
Yeah.
And also now with kind of the modern technology and everything, we don't necessarily watch the whole thing. But interestingly enough, we still keep up with it and kind of follow it if we can.
So have you watched, we'll go through what this year's nominees are, but have you watched most of them?
I've actually seen all of the Best Picture films.
Wow.
Yeah, so we can really kind of talk into this and have some fun. So I have actually seen all of it. It is kind of a rare year because even though this is kind of one of the things I do with Real Dialogue, sometimes there are a few that we miss. But this year actually I've got to see them, so I can actually talk about it
I feel very judged. Not judged by you. I'm just I'm really aware of my own lack in this moment because I normally, I feel like I've been in a different position to you because normally I feel like I've seen everything. It's a new movie every week. There's something, that has come out. I know exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
But I feel like maybe in the last couple of years, it's like there is just so much content. There is so many movies. There's so many places to be watching things. I will have seen some of the major releases, but not as many as normal. So I looked at this year's list of nominees and I was like, I have not seen probably the majority of these. I've heard of all of them. I'm familiar with their stories, but I just haven't, they're not part of the movies that I've watched. And whether that's because they're cinema releases as opposed to streaming maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that anymore because in this modern era, there used to be 5.
Yeah.
Now there's 10, and so there's a lot more to do. But then on top of it, most of the films that tend to get nominated are going to the smaller cinemas, and in this post-COVID world, that means that usually they'll be in cinemas for 2 weeks, and then they'll be on Netflix.
And just wait for that because it's so much better. But so let me mention some of the ones that are actually nominated this year. Okay, so this is like your Best Picture nominees.
Sure.
Top Gun: Maverick.
Yeah.
Women Talking. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which has already been a massive one in this award season. That's had so much conversation around it.
It's like a cultural phenomenon.
It's massive.
It's fascinating.
And it's history making, which we'll touch on that in a second. But there's The Banshees of Inisherin.
Well done. You get it. You got the title. Yay.
The pronunciation will not ruin me. Triangle of Sadness. That is one I definitely was like, what?
You'll need an airsick bag for that one.
Yeah.
It's amazing that pretty much half of the film, it's really quite...
It's a lot. Yeah.
Literally.
And then you've got The Fabelmans, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, and then two, again, big ones already this award season.
right.
ELVIS, Tar, huge. So there is quite, I feel like you look at this list and there's quite a lot, but there's also such a mixture of the kind of stories that are being told, the origin of these stories, and the themes within them. Like it's a very different mix of movies.
It's fascinating. It's completely different, and that's the thing is I find with this year there's not a clear winner. I mean, I feel like it could really almost go to any of these. Kind of curious I don't know which ones you've seen or which one you would think maybe if you were to pick right now, what do you think would be the one you would choose?
Okay, well let me tell you the ones I've seen so you can.
Okay.
I'll give you context, right? Because I
Okay,
don't want you to think that the Banshees of Inisherin should win. And why am I not talking about that? It's because I haven't seen that one.
Right.
That's one I haven't seen. So I've seen Top Gun Maverick.
Okay, good.
I have seen Avatar: The Way of Water.
Sure.
I've seen ELVIS, and I've seen Tar. So that's about half of the list.
Right.
And within that mix, I feel like, I mean, ELVIS was phenomenal.
Loved Elvis.
Austin Butler, incredible. Tom Hanks, I agree, it was a really weird character for him to play. A lot of people have spoken about that. His makeup, what was going on, like all of these different things. But the production quality of that, like Elvis is up there for me. I don't know if it's going to win because I feel like it was meant to be one of the strong contenders this season, this award season. And yes, Austin Butler's won a bunch of awards, but it hasn't really, like for me, been the one that's been the pinnacle.
No.
Like that's kind of missed. But then I would say Tar. Could win because Cate Blanchett, again, she's already received a lot of recognition. It's a really interesting story, and the way they tell that story, her playing this elite conductor and some of the background to how she got there, the challenges she's faced in that role, and the abuse that she instigates in that role.
Sure.
I feel like it's a fascinating, very cinematic, very classic Oscars-style movie, if that makes sense, you know? Like, you know the roles that actors do to win an Oscar? Right. I feel like this is one of those roles and this is that movie. But I would kind of love for Top Gun Maverick to win just because it's so much fun. And if you remember a few years ago when Marvel movies were getting a bit more attention, and I actually can't remember if it happened or not, but they were talking about whether like a Marvel movie could be nominated for Best Picture because it's so not that classic Oscars style movie.
Right.
Top Gun Maverick maybe fits into that pocket for me.
Perfectly. It is the almost perfect cinematic release because you have to see it in cinemas. You want to see it in cinemas. And it actually, I think, saved cinemas in this post-COVID era. Like, it just went on to be Tom Cruise's biggest film ever. If you can imagine that guy's career. And that at 60, he's still going. But the other thing I love about your list is the fact that you picked two films that really have a strong Australian connection. I mean, ELVIS, even though it's a very American story, was all filmed here, almost all Australian cast, and Baz Luhrmann, you gotta love Baz, our Baz, as you would say. Same with our Cate, and in regards to Tar, even though Tar wasn't filmed here either, but yet Cate Blanchett, everybody loves her here. And so I think that I can definitely see kind of where those are. But
maybe it's my subconscious Aussie, like I'm like, favor the Australians.
That's it. I think, but I'm right there with you. I wish Top Gun Maverick would just kind of come in and just fly through and do the flyby and pick this one up with, just surprise everybody because I think honestly it was the film that everybody wanted to see.
And if this was a fan choice award, right? Like if you were choosing the film you most enjoyed watching, for me that would be Top Gun Maverick because it was just so much fun. But obviously this is industry awards and they're going to look at a little bit more, beyond just the fun of it. And so we may not see Top Gun rise to the top.
No, I like that.
No,
nice play. Not come off the flight deck. Quite
right.
Yeah, I got you. But I think, because honestly, I think that really kind of how the momentum's going with this award season, that I think everything, everywhere, all at once is going to win. And I'm going to have to admit it, okay, sorry for all those out there who love that movie. I was probably one of the only critics that really didn't like this movie. I just didn't quite get it, and I didn't quite understand the phenomenon.
What's the story of it again?
It's a story of a woman who actually she owns a laundromat, and they're going through all these different financial woes and discouragement, but then all of a sudden she realizes that she's actually in these multi-dimensional level of that she's actually in another realm. She's actually the hero and actually one of this amazing character. And Michelle Yeoh is amazing. I mean, it's just great, but it is just so bizarre. After a while, you're like going, I have no idea what's going on. It's kind of hard to know what's kind of following the storyline itself.
And it kind of takes, I suppose, from the Matrix world.
Totally.
Like very, very different, but in the same way, like when we all originally watched The Matrix, you finish it going, what the heck just happened? Like,
Right.
I don't totally understand what I watched, but I feel like it was significant and was saying important things, right?
Right.
Like, with Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's like, okay, you've got that kind of style of story that's looking at multiple realities and
Definitely.
what are we unraveling and all of these sorts of things, done in a more modern way. But again, probably it's going to take a couple viewings or at least a little bit more critical conversation about the movie afterwards for people to really realize, what was it doing? What, like, its version of the red pill, blue pill thing? Like,
Yeah.
what? So we'll probably,
Or
you know,
this one, it's the omnipotent bagel.
Yeah.
You're kind of going, what does this have to do with anything? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Give
people
it a
love
couple
it,
of
and so
years.
I think that definitely, I think it could be the one that wins, even though personally, Top Gun and Elvis were the ones that I saw multiple times
Yeah.
in theaters, while most of the rest of these films I saw once.
But the other one I reckon that could be a surprise is All Quiet on the Western Front. It's
yeah.
a foreign language film, which they don't normally win Best
No.
Picture at the Oscars. But it's, again, like, already it's received a few awards this season,
it has.
and a lot of us won't have seen it, may
Right.
not even be familiar with it. But I feel like it could be the quiet achiever that just comes in from left field and takes down all of these massive looking movies to say, hey, I'm here, pay attention to me.
It could. I mean, and it is amazing because it's a classic book, much less of a classic story, and it is well done. It's a disturbingly beautiful film. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's one that it's hard to watch, but yet one that you're going, man, the story that it tells is compelling.
And that, you bringing that up makes me think about the fact that the Oscars do normally give attention to those type of movies. Like, why do you think it is that there is a kind of classic Oscars movie? Why do they have to be these more like dramatic, difficult, darker stories, you think, that tend to get the attention over the fun ones?
Oh, I think it's pretty easy to say because all of the people in the Academy are artists, right? And so they want to be recognized as artists. They want to be taken seriously. We aren't just putting out movies that people can go and eat more popcorn. We want to be recognized as artists. And so I think that, and I can appreciate that. And so they want to make sure also that many times it's recognizing somebody that wouldn't necessarily get as much public play because their films didn't do that well in theaters, but yet should get some recognition. And so I think it's a nod towards that. It's kind of self-serving in a way, in a lot of ways. But I think that that's what they really try to do, and that they really try to grasp that, opposed to just being the most popular film for people out there.
It's a good thought. And I realize we actually haven't even touched on Avatar, The Way of Water, which it's interesting because when it first came out, the first one was back in 2009. So this latest release is, what's that, like 13, 14 years since that came out. When the first one came out, everyone was talking about it. It won so many awards. It achieved so much in cinema. But it's interesting with this release, the movie was incredible. The effects are amazing, and you can see why they wanted to take their time to develop the technology so that the true underwater aspects of this movie could really be brought to life. But I find that fascinating that it's like, it's not at the center.
No.
Right? So I don't know that it's going to do very well at all. Even though it's an incredible movie, it's like times have changed to the point where we don't necessarily appreciate the brilliance that is in that because of all of these other things that are happening right now.
Well, and the thing is that James Cameron has always been known for amazing technological advances in cinema, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've been waiting for this film forever, and then for it to come out, the thing is that he still is breaking barriers, doing new things, but we've kind of become like, oh, but I think I could do that on YouTube.
Like, that's new and amazing, whatever.
Yeah, no, I think I saw it on TikTok the other day. And you didn't, but yet I think that there's kind of this less of an awe about that, just because also we're not necessarily just seeing it in cinemas anymore. You can see there's great streaming stories. There's great stories even on YouTube and all that people are really tapping into.
Yeah.
Also, I think that a lot of it kind of comes down to when you look at a lot of these films, they're story driven. And Avatar, The Way of Water, I don't know, I really felt like it was kind of the same story just told in water. Even though the technology was fascinating, the story in itself was really kind of the same story. So there wasn't something that broke new ground in that. While a lot of these other films, they really do break some new ground.
So maybe we just give Kate Winslet some kind of side award for like 7 minutes holding your breath. Well done, yoo-hoo! And then the movie gets nothing, but she definitely deserves, to be recognized for that effort.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that should be the special non-Academy Awards that we want and we desire.
Yeah, kind of like a Nickelodeon's Kid Choice Award or like something like that. It's like, let's just give you some novelties type award. It's not gold, it's not an Oscar, but you did good.
You did good. You did great.
Yeah.
You broke new ground as far as, Tom Cruise would probably be on that list all the time. Let's see how many times we could almost break a bone in Tom Cruise's body. Yeah,
what else can we throw you out of?
Right.
See if you land.
So, well, hey, now that's kind of looking forward. So I'm kind of curious because you've said you watched the Academy Awards over the years, even if you watched them in bits and pieces. Looking back, was there ever a time where you kind of agreed with the Academy Awards? Because I don't know about you, but a lot of the time, I don't necessarily agree with who gets the best picture sometimes. But was there one that you didn't, or was there moments that just like going, oh, can you remember when that happened?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question to answer whether I agreed. I feel like there was a window where it felt a little more predictable. Like you could really clearly tell that's the movie that's going to win.
Right.
But I think that was, for me, that would be like pre-streaming when there wasn't so much content. It felt like we were all collectively watching the same things. It was really obvious what movies were rising to the top.
Right.
That the Oscars felt a little more like, yeah, we get it. Like this one's going to do is great, whatever. Now it's like, I don't know which way this is going to go because you don't have that
no way.
same sense. But in terms of memorable moments, I think I was actually at work. I was doing my radio show when the year that La La Land was up against Moonlight in Best Picture. And they, because of the timing of it, the Oscars were happening live while I was on air. So I'm watching it, seeing what's happening. And that moment unfolded as I'm watching in real time when like La La Land was awarded, you've won Best Picture. And then it's like, hang on a minute, we got this wrong.
Warren Beatty, what did
you say? It's like, no, actually it was Moonlight, guys. Everyone else get off the stage. And just because the Oscars are such a produced event, like so much goes into the lead up, the execution, the envelope reading, all of these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, the train is crashing and I am watching it happen. And just these A-list actors, like Ryan Gosling is there, Emma Stone is there, and just their reactions processing the excitement and then the disappointment and then the humor of the fact that this happened and it's on live international television. And then the sort of celebration of Moonlight and how much it did deserve to win, even though it was the surprise choice in the sense that that year La La Land had so much attention. I was just like, this is a fantastic moment of television history, and I'm really glad I'm watching it happen and not just reading the highlights later.
Oh, yeah.
What about you? Like, do you have a memorable moment?
Well, actually, it's funny because it kind of goes back to the Avatar story. So James Cameron has won for Titanic, right? And he even said, I'm king of the world. And everybody hated him after that. You know, like going, oh, really? Even though it's a line from the movie, you know, we totally get it. But all of a sudden you're going, really?
So cheesy.
But then after that, he gets nominated for Avatar. And so everybody's thinking, Avatar is going to win this, going to pull this off, and he's going to be king of the world again, even though everybody's cringing. And what happens? A little film called The Hurt Locker pulls it out. Interestingly enough, it was his ex-wife, who's the director, Catherine Bigelow, and it was a great film. I mean, The Hurt Locker was phenomenal. Jeremy Renner all of a sudden becomes a movie star from this film. You know? So it was great. But I think it was that moment where you're going, everybody's expecting Avatar, but then all of a sudden you see this little film. This goes back to what we were talking about before. That probably, you know, is probably one of the lowest box office draws ever to win an Academy Award. But yet it deserved it. It was great. And so it was one of the I really, really enjoyed about that. That was one of those where you're going, yes, the little man. It's kind of the David and Goliath moment where all of a sudden the stone is thrown, you know, and the giant falls, and you know, and this great film gets recognized. And so I think it's one of those of my favorites.
And more people go and watch it. Like that's the other thing. Like the Oscars become this phenomena in the sense that it's not just about like celebrating the movies you've watched and obviously recognizing the artists and all of this, but it does become something that makes the audience, the everyday, you know, people among us, we kind of go, oh, I should watch that. Like it draws attention to these stories and ideas, and in some instances, these real like social movements that gather steam because of recognition at the Oscars. Like it's funny because on the one hand, it's such a like silly, trivial, commercial, shiny thing with all the, you know, beautiful dresses and tuxedos and blah, 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 like of it. But then it really does have quite a lot of impact on the ideas we talk about in society, the things we think are important. Like I think of massive campaigns like how Me Too, you know, influenced that. And I mean, there's so many others, the Oscars So White hashtag, all these things where it's like this event is more than just the event itself. It really becomes this kind of cultural melting pot of ideas and really shapes what people are going to be talking about after the fact.
Exactly. Well, you know, and what I find interesting about the awards too, kind of going to that, is that many times we're focused so much on the host that we forget that there's actually a show going on.
Yeah.
You know, so how did the host do for the night, you know, and the poor person who gets that job, I mean,
Oh my gosh.
rarely, I mean, I'm like going, that's actually the poison pill, I think, for many people, even though, to me, I still look back at, one, Billy Crystal was probably one of my favorites, he just nailed it, as far as, but then actually Hugh Jackman actually was amazing when he actually did it.
I don't remember
again,
him
going
doing
another
it.
Aussie tag, he only had one time, and he was phenomenal, he actually, he wasn't even Hugh Jackman yet, really, but he was so talented, for singing and all the things that he was able to do. I think everybody was kind of thrown off by that.
Just get this up and comer having a go.
Yeah. But while so many others just pretty much their career was almost put at a standstill because they did such a bad job or it just wasn't well received.
And it's a role that draws so much attention. So particularly in the increasingly cancel culture based nature of things, like whoever's in that role, I feel like they get so much attention that it can be something that really makes or breaks their career.
Right, it does.
You see this happen, right? Like it happened with his name escapes me, comedian,
David
short dude versus The Rock.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
With
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart. Oh,
I described him as a short dude who's friends with The Rock. I'm sorry, Kevin. But it's like, I remember he just got scrutinized. Like when he, and rightly or wrongly, right? The criticism may be valid.
Sure.
But I just think you are putting yourself in such an exposed position when you say yes to such a visible role.
That's right. Well, and I think that too, and again, it moves to this modern era. It goes back to one of the things you brought up with Avatar. We moved in this era where you tweet something from 10 years ago, it's still there. It's still online. You put up a comment when you were a teenager on Facebook, it shows up in your adult life, and all of a sudden you're paying the price for it. And that's kind of what happened with so many of these guys, and men and women.
It's actually part of what has affected this year's award season as well. I don't know if everybody's so across with the SAG Awards that happened. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once was wonderfully recognized.
Exactly.
In that ceremony. You had Michelle Yeoh making history, her co-stars. There was, for a lot of the categories, it was the first time someone of Asian heritage received an award, was recognized. It was really beautiful, really wonderful. And then a lot of the commentary after was noting the fact that Mark Wahlberg was presenting that award. He's someone who 30 years or so ago was involved in hate crimes against Asian communities. He spent jail time or spent time in jail because of that. And so it was like, should he be the guy presenting this award when he's demonstrated a hatred toward this community, even though he has moved past that, he says, and he's obviously like asked for forgiveness, all of these sorts of things. But I think, wow, like the fact that that is something that can still have some kind of effect on what's happening now. And interestingly, like I acknowledge, like it's a really difficult thing for a lot of people. I don't want to misspeak about that in any way. But when you look at it as from a sort of a cultural conversation, I wonder why. My question was, I wonder why this would be considered offensive in the sense that if you're someone who has done wrong and then you're now in a position where you've got to recognize, elevate, celebrate, give recognition to the person you have wronged, surely that's a really humble position to be in, right? Like Mark Wahlberg's not getting an award from a community that he has acted criminally against. He's having to celebrate them. He's having to support them and give them this, or be part of this moment of history. And I feel like, doesn't that put him in his place?
Yeah.
You know, so it's interesting the way these kind of instances do become these conversational melting pots.
It is, and I think that's actually even here on the watch list. I think one of the things that we can really kind of look at within this theme is that because forgiveness, like, are we willing to forgive? Do we genuinely forgive, and can we not forget, but yet put it to the side and be able to do that? Because I found in even kind of coming from a Christian faith, and like, are you willing to forgive and allow somebody to actually move forward in their lives in that way? Because I was looking at a lot of the themes of these movies this year and kind of looking kind of all the different opportunities. Most of them had to deal with the issue of forgiveness, and are we willing to forgive? And so kind of putting that through a biblical lens, but then on top of it, putting it through a societal lens. Are we willing to do it? Because you want people to succeed, you want to build them up and all that, especially with these awards. But then when they do fail, are we willing to forgive them? It's a really big
Yeah.
discussion point. I think that, thankfully, I think we have something to say, kind of from that Christian position about that, as far as forgiveness, and that doesn't come from us, coming from God, and allowing for that. But also within our society, are we willing to kind of touch on that? And is that something that we're willing to give? Because I think that's what sometimes these big awards really bring out, some of the good and bad. They shed light on things that you don't necessarily want to maybe celebrate. Even you're looking at last year with the whole Will Smith thing. Are we willing? Society, much less Chris Rock, willing to forgive? And will they?
It's difficult because that was again one of those really, like, at face value, it's simple. A guy hit another guy, acted so inappropriately, and then there's layers of that, right? Like, where did that set? Like, and Will Smith has even spoken about it. Like, what was it that caused him to think that was an appropriate response to that situation? Like, something drove him to act in that way, and then the aftermath, he's gone, wait, this does not line up to the kind of man, the kind of father, husband I want to be.
Right.
And so it's like, when did we step from an award ceremony into something that was suddenly making us think about, what is healthy masculinity? What does it look like to appropriately, engage with those kind of moments? Like, it's just, I just think, again, it's like these conversations that are bigger than the event themselves.
Totally.
Come from it. And I know we've got to wrap up soon. We've been chatting to you about
I
movies
know,
for a while,
I love this.
which we can. But I just want your thoughts on this year's ceremony. What do you think people are really, short of some other bizarre event that catches us off guard and happens at this year's ceremony, what do you think people are really going to be talking about after watching this? And like you've said, is forgiveness the biggest theme, or are there other things you think are going to come out of this year's event?
It's hard to predict because you don't know what's going to happen, especially after last year's event, because the event itself was pretty boring, but then the slap occurred and all of a sudden everybody remembers that.
Yeah, it's a viral moment.
And then, so you remember that. But it was really, for me, looking at, because I was just going through each one of these films and I'm going, oh, outside of the fact that the films that deserve to win most likely won't, and that usually is what happens, and there will be the film that whatever will win will be deserving, I'm sure, in some way. But I really think it does come down to an issue of forgiveness. And I think that's one difference about how we can kind of look at this. We can actually look at it, especially coming from a Christian faith, putting it through that biblical lens of kind of putting in perspective what this whole thing is about. We're celebrating this, the achievements of mankind. Okay, that's fine. We're achieving all these different things. But really within each one of these stories, of each one of these films, we really see how broken our society is. And then I think that what we do is we have an answer, with the Bible and with Jesus, be able to go through and actually say to all of these broken stories that you see that are being celebrated, really, in a way, that we have an answer that's probably more fulfilling, more hope-filled than they do. And so that's what for myself, I know that I will be talking about. I'd be curious to see what we will be talking about next week after the Academy Awards. So I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I just hope that if we get a viral moment, can it please be like a fun mishap, someone being okay but falling down the stairs, something like that.
Or like the Ellen DeGeneres,
the selfie, or wasn't it
like
Jennifer Lawrence years ago that stacked it in her beautiful dress up the stairs? Like, I'm okay with viral moments like that. We don't need we don't need the slap again. We don't need something like that. I want to have a laugh at this year's ceremony. I think that's what all of us need. So I'm hoping it brings us that.
Me too. And so, hey, well, thanks for this. I'm so excited about this. This is our first episode. I look forward to seeing kind of where it goes. Thanks for listening in and watching the watch list. That's Laura, and also me, Russ Matthews. Again, you can go to more things at Hope 103.2, but then also with realdialogue.com. Again, Real Dialogue is an activity of Third Space where we kind of try to look at the bigger questions of film and faith. And I hope that's what we're able to do with the watch list as we kind of proceed from episode 1.
Yeah.
Enjoy the Academy Awards and see if we get it right this time, or if it's going to be some other viral moment that actually makes a difference. So thanks again from the watch list. This is Russ.
And I'm Laura. See you later.